Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett is attracting controversy again after making some remarks that some say lean a bit heavily into identity politics. Speaking on Sirius XM's Urban View Town Hall Friday, Crockett claimed Democrats already made their choice for the 2028 presidential candidate, and she said it's, quote, the safest white boy. She continued saying, quote, I had a donor on the phone with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate, so I can tell, and I tell you, it's not a black person nor a woman, okay? In the now viral video that co-host Clay Kane shared, Crockett didn't name names, but dropped a hint that the party has a specific candidate in mind.
Crockett has gotten into hot water recently. If you recall, she referred to wheelchair-bound Texas Governor Greg Abbott as Hot Wheels, for which she was nearly censured. She later claimed her words were twisted. And last year, she traded fiery insults with Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene during a House hearing where they talked about each other's physical appearance.
Social media lit up with reactions. X-account Conservative Brief posted, quote, safest white boy, delusional Democrat Representative Jasmine Crockett brings up race again, this time claiming the party wants to play it safe in 2028. Red State X account posted, quote, oh my, Jasmine Crockett just stepped in it again with comments about who the donors want in 2028. The full Urban View Town Hall will be released on May 15th, which I presume is why we can't play a clip from it, sadly.
Sadly.
You know, my response to this would be like, okay, name names. I'm not going to contradict what you heard from a donor. Who is this safe white boy they're lining up behind? I think if she had just said, you know, the party at its most elite level is risk averse and clearly preferences older establishment figures. It certainly does in terms of congressional leadership. She would have said something that's uncontroversial that I completely agree with, that is actually an attractive thing to say to independent-minded people, how the Democratic Party at its elite level has conspired against interesting, out-of-the-box people. I think by making it a kind of race thing, well, A, it just is, then conservatives are just going to bash the hell out of it, and then it has a ring of falseness to me because, well, Kamala Harris was just she was the choice of, I mean, I'm not saying there's something illegitimate about it, but she was the choice of the establishment and the party and the donors and everybody, and she was a black woman. So it's not really about race so much to me, right?
I mean, I don't always defend Jasmine Crockett. I think she's prone to saying some kind of pointless or certainly disputable things often. The thing here that I would defend her on, though, is I don't think that what she's saying is really that controversial. As is often the case with her, the way she puts it inflames conservatives and she gets a lot of criticism for it. But, I mean, I think her argument is very simply that in the three presidential elections post-Barack Obama, Democrats have lost 2 and won 1. And the one that they were victorious in was with an old white guy, i.e. Joe Biden, and Hillary Clinton lost and Kamala Harris lost. And therefore, it seems sort of self-evident that there are Democrats who are nervous about nominating another woman or a person of color, non-white person, whatever term you want to use. And that seems like just obviously the case. I don't think that it necessarily ought to be the case in a perfect world, but don't you think someone like your favourite Gretchen Whitmer, who I am always talking up here, or some of the other female candidates, even AOC, do you not think there is a perception that gender or race in the case of black candidates may hurt people with the general electorate?
No, I think AOC, it'll be that she has much. I mean, I'm not even sure with the general electorate. With the Democratic Party, the primary, she's going to get attacked by the establishment for having out-of-the-box views I don't agree with. I don't really think it has to do with her gender. I mean, you looked at the most recent 3 elections, but you know that's leaving off the MVP of the Democratic Party is Barack Obama, a black man who performed spectacularly well in terms of general election appeal. So I think it has to do more with the politics of the person, but you know, Barack Obama had a kind of moderate style or I mean, he was a very good and effective communicator that both somehow captured progressive aspirations, but was temperamentally moderate in some way that, you know, say what you will about your feelings on his politics, but was successful in terms of winning elections. I think it's more about you know, how the establishment views your politics race and gender being a proxy for that sometimes, but not in all cases. I mean, Bernie Sanders is someone with, I would say, very outside the establishment of the Democratic Party. You might say they're popular beliefs, but that they're not super popular. They're not the things Democratic elites want to run on. But yeah, he's a boring old conventional white guy otherwise, but he's not, and that's the lens you get put in, but it's really not about that. It's about the politics of the person. And I'm not sure where frankly, to slot Jasmine Crockett on that, because I'm not as familiar with her politics. I don't know that she's really a full-on AOC type person.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair enough. Look, first of all, I think in relation to President Obama, people even now don't, I think, fully recognize how exceptional a figure he was. And I mean that both in a praising way, but also literally exceptional. That tendency that he had, that you alluded to, where he sort of spoke with the rhetorical flourish of progressives, but is actually quite an incrementalist politician. And certainly, the famous convention speech back in 2004 was all about transcending American divisions and finding common ground. He's actually not politically a very radical figure. So his political skills plus that appeal make him just very, very unusual. In 2008, I remember all sorts of fears about the Bradley effect, which was going back 20 or 30 years before, the idea that white voters would say they would vote for a black candidate and the end would not do so. Obama's election and re-election was a rebuttal to that argument. I do take the point that a Sanders-type figure, people outside the establishment, are treated with suspicion by that establishment. But I also think that Democrats in general are a little bit snake bit by the losses of both Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton, and that translates to a reluctance to nominate a woman again next time around.
Well, and gender and race are different things. There might be more of a gender thing than a race thing.
Possibly.
And it might just be the case. I would not bet against it being a safe white boy candidate. Sure. Josh Shapiro or Gavin Newsom. I think the front runners, to be clear, for the Democratic nomination in 2028 are Kamala Harris herself, if she decides to run, Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro, maybe Gretchen Whitmer, and maybe AOC. I think those are the 5 most likely people. There could be some out-of-the-box Stephen A. Smith character, but who knows? But that might just be a side effect if Josh Shapiro is the safe pick being alluded to here, it's because he's a popular governor of the must-win state. It doesn't really have anything to do with his race or gender, unless you think those were factors in him becoming elected. But he is popular enough in the state that Democrats have to win.
Sure.
And maybe Democratic elites, and this is not to their... This would be a good decision if they were like, you know what, we figured it out. Okay, we really need to win the Midwest. Let's have a strategy to do that this time.
Yeah.
Would not be bad thinking on their part strategically.
No, I broadly agree with that, but I would say in relation to the relevance or salience of perhaps gender in particular, one of the most fascinating findings from the exit polls this time around, or last November, was that Latino men shifted to an enormous degree toward Trump, and Latina women did not really do so. Now, that seems to me to undercut the argument often made by conservatives or people on the online right. Oh, well, it's a sort of Latinos and Latinas generally prefer Trump's economic policies or something. That to me does at least imply that there was a gender component to that very significant shift among Latino.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. I would not dismiss the gender thing. I think it might be a more salient factor than race, frankly. But also Kamala's whole branding was, Mamala, that whole kind of thing that was really well liked by SNL and progressives. Seems to me like it was off-putting to young men, again, of all racial categories. Not a race thing, possibly a gender-based thing.
Yeah, no, that's not an implausible theory.
Interesting topic. Still ahead, Qatar is pulling out all the stops ahead of President Trump's visit this week, including a highly criticized multi-million-dollar gift, a jumbo jet. We'll talk about it. More Rising right after this.